Hi, my name is Sean Mabry. I'm a writer, and today I wanted to talk about the fact that characters are not people, which might seem kind of counterintuitive to most of you because there's a lot of writing advice out there around characterization that tells you to basically treat them like people. A lot of writers will talk about hearing their characters, speaking to them directly, and I've certainly experienced that too. But I wanted to dive into a little bit of what characters actually are. Because even though, yes, they get to a point where they feel like real people, they're ultimately not. And it's actually quite important for you to, as a writer, to understand this fact. Because if you go into the work trying to build a real person, or trying to create something that behaves exactly like a real person, notice the word I'm using there, exactly, which is a mistake I've made in some of my stories, you're going to actually end up with a huge problem on your hands, because you're going to end up with a story that doesn't feel like a story because it has something that isn't a character inside of it. Because what a character is a vessel for the reader to understand a part of themselves or a part of the people around them. And that's why, characters run the gamut from sort of iconic characters like Superman, which represents basically just the best of humanity, right? He's all everything that we consider like noble and generous and good and strong, all wrapped up in the one being, and there's not too much complexity beyond that. Obviously, some writers have managed to take Superman in interesting directions, but that's ultimately all that he is. And then on the far other end of the spectrum, you have a character like, I don't know, take like a Don Draper or someone, where he's this complicated, nuanced, morally gray character that we alternate between rooting for and kind of squinting at, But even in those cases, the reason why we definitely find them interesting for different reasons, but it's still an act of us as readers inserting into the characters. Whether they're a complete sort of empty vessel icon or a complex vessel, they're still a vessel. And if you go and try to write your characters as if they're real people, they're not going to behave in a way that is conducive to story. Because real people, if you watch them for long enough, if you watch real people in action, they don't behave like characters in stories. We are actually not nearly as consistent as characters in stories are. In fact, one of the most fascinating things I've noticed in my own writing, and if you write for long enough, you'll start to notice this too, is just how wildly your own voice can vary based on your context. And there's a reason for that. That's how the human mind works. We adapt to our surroundings, and so much of who we are and what we do is determined by our surroundings, which is really not true of characters. And in fact, that's a pretty clunky way to write characters. If you write characters to match your setting, if you let the setting dictate your characters, that's going to come across as very passive, uninteresting characters that nobody wants to follow at all, whether they're rooting for them or rooting against them. They just become very, very boring. But the reality is that's exactly what human beings are. We are dictated by our environments to a pretty huge degree. And so we need characters to heighten the elements of us that are not environmental, that do come from within, so that we can have a better understanding of those elements of ourselves, and maybe even ultimately a better control over those elements of ourselves. But it's a different beast. It's a different beast. So I hope that made sense to you. I hope that distinction helps you out with your writing. And as always, feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you all next week.